Okay, hello and welcome to yet another exciting session of Agile Nights with me, Umar Khalid. Thanks for joining us, guys. Guys, it can be so frustrating when people say to you, just follow your profession, just follow your passion. Uh, of course, you'd love to follow your passion if you only know what your passion is. So you might be very hardworking. You might be working with a lot of commitment, persistence, and you can become unstoppable, but only if you know what you're doing. So to talk about that, we have a very special guest with us who will be talking with us on finding passion and purpose in our careers. She's joining us from Washington, D.C. She is the chief penguin at IBM Hyper Protect Accelerator program. And of course, she is going to explain herself what this chief penguin means and most importantly, what it means to her. But she's also the CEO and founder of Mentor Nations in Africa that is teaching tens of thousands of people in Africa to code. So there's much more to her profile. I'd not like to not go in details and find out during the conversation with her. She is Melissa Sassi. So welcome to the show, Melissa.
Hi, thank you. So, salam alaikum. As he mentioned, मेरा नाम Melissa Sassi है.
क्या
Ramadan
हाल है, Melissa? क्या हाल है?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
That's great. So before you run out of your Urdu vocab, we will switch back to your native and start
That's
some
good.
questions for you. So
That's good. That's good because my Urdu is not very good, but I can say
yeah,
Zindabad, Pakistan.
yeah. The most important and interesting thing about this session is normally we get the questions during the session, most of the questions, but for this session, we've got a bunch of questions prior to the session. So it means that the audience is quite engaged here. So before I start throwing those questions to you, I'd like to know where this chief penguin came from uh, because I interview a lot of people who are either the directors, managers. There are a lot of common titles like they are experts, coaches. But what's the story behind this chief penguin?
All right, so I will tell you the story behind the chief penguin. So I used to work at Microsoft, right? I'm at IBM now, and obviously I'm a founder of a number of different things around the world. But when I was at Microsoft, I had a colleague who was the chief ninja cat. And then I had another colleague who had and he still has a Twitter handle that's called Thready the T Rex. So, like the dinosaur. And I thought, wow, we've got a ninja cat, we've got this T Rex. And then I came to Pakistan and I met the big bird of the nest. So, Chihanara. And I thought, wow, we've got a big bird, we've got a T Rex, we got Thready, and we have the chief ninja cat. And I thought, well, I want to be an animal too. And I hadn't quite found my animal yet. And then I was thinking about all of the work that I do in the open source world, and realized that the animal for open source is the penguin. And I thought, well, I could be a penguin. And so I became the chief penguin. And the funny thing about that is I actually changed it in the IBM directory. So when you are an IBM employee and you log into what we call Blue Pages, which is the employee directory where you go and find out somebody's job title, their reporting structure, mine says Chief Penguin. And it kind of stuck because now my VP, my GM, and everyone across the company calls me the Chief Penguin. And so there it is, Chief Penguin.
So that sounds interesting. So my first question, as we've received a bunch of questions, is I would like to put it this way. I was speaking to my philosophy teacher the other day. He told me that whenever he meets his old mates or the teachers, they say to him that what are you doing in philosophy? I mean, there is a general perception that there is no great scope of philosophy degree in terms of earning. So I speak to a lot of people. They like to go with the flow, whatever is trending in the market. So do you see a problem with that? I certainly do. But what are the other options they have instead of going with the flow and whatever is trending and wherever they see more scope of earning. How do you see this problem?
I think that it's a few different things. I think that, we have, financial needs, and we have family pressure. We may have cultural pressure. We may have a lot of things that we need to focus on in our careers. But I think there is no trade-off between doing well and doing good. And what I mean by that is, in the past, you would have to trade between making money and making the world a better place. But I think nowadays, it's possible to do both at the same time. Now, it might take a long time to get there and find an opportunity that allows you to bring your purpose and your passion into your career. But I'll tell you, the first job that it wasn't a passion job. It wasn't a purpose job. It was a job that allowed me to make money and allowed me to, feed myself and get out from underneath, my parents' support for me. And it took me a long time to bring purpose and passion into my career. So I think that there are a lot of people who expect that, day one, you're going to be in this purpose-driven career. And it does happen for some people. But for the majority of us, it does not. And you have to create it. For me, I created purpose and passion into my career by volunteering with nonprofits, by volunteering with startups, because I didn't even know what my chosen career should be. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I took a job and then I figured it out. I figured it out along the way. And it took me 10 years to do that. And then once I figured out I really wanted to bring purpose and passion into my career, it took me a few more years to make that happen. I've got a formula that I use that helps others try to bring purpose and passion into their career. But I think ultimately you need to figure out, how do you balance the two things?
All right. So, yeah, enlighten us about another scenario. Let's take this scenario that sometimes you want to adapt a particular career because it fascinates you. You enjoy doing it, but you might not have extraordinary um, skills there. So, like if I talk about myself, I have always been passionate about cricket, music, poetry. These three things were my passion, but I never thought of making them as my career because I was not sure that I will be good enough to reach the top level. So my question is, what's important for you? More important for you, like following your dream or following your potential?
Now it's both, because I've realized that I can do both at the same time, because I've worked very hard to be able to do both. But previously, I did what I was able to do that would pay my bills and that would allow me to live my life in the way that I wanted to live. And I think in many parts of the world, and Pakistan, I would include in that sometimes you don't really have a choice between what do you want to do and what do you have to do. And so I think that it's possible to achieve your dreams, but you have to work hard. You have to set up a plan, and you have to figure out, how to get there, how to move from here to there. And it doesn't just happen like that. It takes hard work, and it takes experience, and it takes practice. I think the first thing is figuring out, what really is your dream? And how can is there a business model that you can come up with that allows you to be an entrepreneur and express your dreams in a way that allows you to also, financially gain. And in many cases, it's not possible. And so how do you balance, doing volunteer work or carving out time from your job to, do passion projects? And this is where it takes having good leaders. So my manager, for example, Jean Brooks, who works at IBM, she empowers me to also achieve my dreams. She wants me to achieve my dreams. And for those of you who are managers, how do you empower people underneath you, people across from you? If you are an entrepreneur, how do you empower your team members to achieve their dreams? How do you talk to your manager about still fulfilling the obligations of your job, but doing more that allows you to incorporate whatever your passion might be?
All right. So, got it. Well, most of our viewers are the professionals who have already chosen their careers, and most of them are at this stage where it's not feasible for them to switch their careers, even if they know where they realize that they don't belong there. They have to stick with them. So, tell us with your personal experience what they can do to find purpose in their careers, existing careers, without switching their careers uh, at all.
Yeah, I think that one piece of it is if you know what that passion is, figure out, is there a tie between your passion and your company's goals and objectives? That's what I've done, is tying my personal passions to my company. So I'm passionate about digital inclusion. I'm passionate about female empowerment, about youth empowerment, and technology entrepreneurship. I haven't always been passionate about that. It came over time. And I realized that, oh, these are my passions. And I was able to, shift my career because I didn't start my career doing this. I started out my career in, analyzing raw materials, chemicals, sulfur, hydraulic acid. I didn't do anything related to female empowerment, digital inclusion, technology entrepreneurship. But I realized through some of my volunteer work and some of my personal experiences that I loved that. And so I started doing volunteer work. I started doing activities in my own company. And there are many, many different ways that you can be creative about, creating profit from what you do. So for example, it might not make, let's say you love handicrafts, and let's say you love making, handicrafts, is it possible for you to, you know, create a store? Is it possible for you to, partner with a developer and, sell your handicrafts? Is it possible that, you create a platform by working with a developer who creates that platform for you? Is it that you bring other handicrafts women, every other, women or men or whomever who are equally passionate about that? But I don't think that everyone should be forced to take their hobby and turn it into a profitable business. Not all of us even really should take our hobby and make money off of it. It is healthy to have hobbies and not turn them into a business. But I think the big difference is, that business model, meaning, are you able to turn it into revenue? I have a friend of mine who was passionate about fashion design her entire life. He went to university to be an engineer, and she got an engineering job, and she was an engineer for many years. And she kept drawing sketches of dresses and jackets and things. And she decided that she was going to go to fashion school at night. And not everybody has the ability to work and study at the same time. I understand that. She did. And so she went and studied fashion design in the evening. And she realized through that journey that she loves fashion design. She could draw really well, but she's not good at sewing. And so she found someone who was better than her at sewing. And now she actually has an online store, a number of collaborations with others. and she just turned a profit last year, and she's still an engineer. So she does both at the same time. And I think that that's the other point that I'd like to make is you don't have to choose between things sometimes. Like, I'm an entrepreneur inside of IBM. I'm also an entrepreneur outside of IBM. So I have my own ventures and I have a job at the same time. And again, not everybody can do that, but you shouldn't have to choose between being, innovative in a company and doing your side thing, whatever that side thing may be. And I know in different parts of the world, it's harder to be an entrepreneur because they might think like, well, are you really invested in your job? And, oh, should you be doing this side thing? I think it's up to us as a community to change perception. Just like when I started with IBM, I said, I have these side activities that I'm working on, and they will not get in the way of my job. Actually, they will help to empower you to do more. And I'm going to keep doing these things. And I think that we ultimately shouldn't have to choose between them. But again, not every hobby needs to make money.
All right. So, Melissa, I would also like to know that how much are you in favor of taking advices for your career? Because you get a lot of valuable advices for your career from your mentors, from your teachers, from your peers, even from your juniors. But at the same time, it's the same advices and voices that inculcate the fear of failure to follow your dreams. So, how do you decide which voices to hear and which voices to ignore? What's your personal experience with this?
It's hard sometimes because sometimes you think that you have a friend, you think that you have a mentor, but that person is actually competing with you and may not have your best interest at heart. And it takes time and experience, I think, to figure out who can you rely on, who do you trust. I generally look at, who are people I admire in terms of their careers, their integrity, their honesty, their transparency, their authenticness, or authenticity. I often look at these kind of qualities, and the people I've seen, who act with integrity, act with authenticity, act with transparency, people I admire. Also, people who are accessible to me are the people I typically trust. But I think about this. You're always going to have haters. You're always going to have jealous people. You're always going to have people who try to bring you down, and you need to figure out, how do you not listen to the people who are trying to bring you down? And how do you identify between, someone who has your best interest at heart and someone who does not? And it's a skill and it takes time, but ultimately follow your gut, follow what, is inside of you. The biggest challenge, though, is what I find: the worst advice comes from inside, and your worst nightmare, your worst worry is you. So how do you get beyond listening to yourself and, your own, mind is telling you, what if you fail? Oh gosh, are you an imposter? Do you deserve to have a seat at the table? Did you get there by chance? How do you surround yourself around positive people who are there for the, your, to be your better self, if you will?
That's fine. So another question is, when you're driving yourself by your passion instead of what's working for others, so it doesn't come without risks. A certain level of risk, obviously, is there. So are you the proponent of taking those risks, or are you the proponent of playing it safe? So
I
how
am
do you
a
manage
risk
that risk?
taker. I am a risk taker. I jump in head first. And sometimes, like, for example, I will put myself out there before I'm ready to be out there. But I will often caveat that with, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's what I don't know. Here's what I think I know. And I put myself out there. And I think what most people see with me is what you see on social media, what you see at work, what you see in my personal life. I'm the same person. I'm approachable. I'm authentic. I'm passionate. I am engaged, and I care about the causes, deeply, that I'm invested in my professional life. Like, they really mean something to me. But I'm not afraid to take risks. Um, and I think that everyone has a different threshold of risk, aversion or risk acceptance. I enjoy calculated risks, but I don't just take stupid risks. I try to look at things. I try to look at things in a way that um, I'm kind of calculating out, okay, what are the pros and cons of this? What could go wrong? And sometimes it's very interesting to, I'm always creating new things. So when I came into my job at IBM, I created this program from scratch. It didn't exist. It was my, idea in terms of how do we bring it together. And thankfully, I got some feedback and I tried to socialize it with people. And I think that's the thing as well. How do you bring, people into the conversation with you who are smarter than you or better than you at certain things? How do you recognize your weaknesses? Know when to raise your hand and say, I don't know the answer to that. Do you? Or do you know someone who does? And even like your mentors or your sponsors. And I have a lot of reverse mentor relationships. So I have a 15-year-old girl who mentors me.
All right. So that sounds good. I think we have a few questions listed on our Facebook page, but before we take up those questions, I would like to know about the two terms that you mentioned here, the entrepreneur and the entrepreneur, that you are working with both of them and you're working as both of them also. So I would like to know about few things that you talked about while you were in Pakistan. I think it was 3 or 4 months back, and that was quite an interesting session. And you explained those terms and your personal experiences with them. So I think there are a number of viewers here that were not present at that time, and I would like you to shed some light on those points that you mentioned during
Was
those
that
that
was
session.
that was that imposter syndrome, or was that entrepreneurship and
And
entrepreneurship?
it was entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So entrepreneurship is when you work in someone else's company. So it's not your own company, it's somebody else's company, and you're innovating inside of that company. So for example, I have a startup inside of IBM. Yeah, I have a scrappy startup inside of IBM. And what that means is I have a program that's new. I created it with the team. Because it's new, we're testing and we're learning, and we're adjusting as we go. And so what that means is I'm an entrepreneur. I'm creating something new that didn't exist. All right. An entrepreneur is you've got your own startup, or you want to have your own startup, and you're creating something outside of a company. It's your own company, it's your baby. And you could be a co-founder, it could be a group of you, but you're not working for someone else, you're working for yourself with your team.
Hmm. So, if there are any potential entrepreneurs in our audience, how can they collaborate or interact with Melissa Sassi to get some assistance?
So there are a few different things that you can do. I'm very active in Twitter. Let me just see if I can. I don't know if can I chat somewhere? I can't, can I?
Yeah, you can share it on chat. It will come on the screen.
Okay, so if I do private chat, then you can share it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, so if you could share that would be great. It's Mentor Africa with a K. That's a good place to be able to reach me. I respond there. I am not good at responding to all of the emails that I get, so that's a bad thing for me. So reaching me on Twitter is good. I don't always accept every Facebook request at something, whether you're 44, 104, or 4, or 14, or whatever you are, we're all a student. So you can join this user group, you can post discussion questions, and this is a good place to get my attention or the attention of my team at IBM.
So I think that's great. I think we should take questions from the audience now. And Salman, if we can get the questions on the screen, I think it's the right time to do that because there's a long list of questions. Yeah. So the first question is from Naveed Ramzan. Somehow youngsters are not even trying to find purpose in passion due to that they're lacking in career progression in terms of technical or long-term progression. Any suggestions?
Okay, so let me read this again. Okay. I think that, the biggest thing is trying to figure out, what do you care about? What fires you up? What makes you wake up in the morning? And again, I go back to, trying to, encourage young people by figuring out what they're passionate about. So my son is 15, and what fires him up is Fortnite. What social good is in Fortnite? So I've been trying to talk to him about game development. And maybe, and I make him write proposals to me, and I make him write business plans to me if he wants something. And so what that means is he got a new computer. Actually, he hasn't got the new computer yet. He got a new monitor. He got a new monitor, and the reason he got a new monitor is because he put a business plan together. He didn't have a computer to write it up with, and so he wrote it on a piece of paper. And on the piece of paper, he wrote down the problem statement. He wrote down the market opportunity. He wrote down his mission, his vision, and his value proposition. And I made him research every one of those things. And I made him write it out on a paper. And I made him figure out, what can you do in order to earn the money to be able to get the monitor? And what I mean by earning it is volunteering or doing something that he, would find interesting to give back in his community. And he was, kind of in the position to choose it himself. So he could do whatever he wanted to do, but he had to volunteer and do something. And he had to write a business plan. So I think the thing about it is with our friends, it's often easy to see, what do they get excited about? Like when do they get excited talking about something? Is it sports? Is it music? Is it food? Is it poetry? Is it, fashion? Whatever it is it technology? And, how do you try to be a good, a good influence? I think the other thing is it's hard when someone doesn't want to be motivated to try to motivate them. And there are some people where you can talk until you're blue in the face and you're not going to influence them. It has to come from them. It has to come from inside them. I never thought it was possible to bring purpose and passion into my career, because I was kind of stuck in this career and I woke up in the morning, I did my thing. And then one day it dawned on me that I could do more. I could do better. And I could find something that I loved to do. But a lot of people don't realize that you can do both, especially when they see everyone around them suffering.
All right. So can we move to our next question, please? Okay, this is from Salman Khwaja. Actually, he showed his own question first. He showed some biasness here, but let's be okay with. How can one find out their passions? How to really nail it down so that you could after ruthlessly.
I think the best place to find your passions is to look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm going to just quickly pull up the website. So give me 1 second while I get there. I want to just make sure I'm looking at the right thing. And I'm going to pop it in the chat window, and then we can share it here. So Go to globalgoals.org. Look at those goals. There are 17 of them. These are the biggest, wickedest challenges on the planet. When you read each of those, which one fires you up? Which one are you like, oh, yeah, that's my thing. You know, I care about that thing. Think about how you can translate that big, wicked goal into your family, into your friend group, into your community. So naturally, when it talks about ending poverty by 2030, that seems so big, right? But what is something that you could do to end poverty in your neighborhood? You know, for an out-of-school child in Pakistan, or someone living in a slum in Pakistan. You know, what is one thing that you could do with one family? And think about these micro opportunities, and then kind of translate those micro opportunities into growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And just remember that volunteering and charity is not just about giving money. What can you do to be a good mentor? What can you do to be a good coach? What are the skills that you have that you could use to empower someone else? You know, you might know how to read. Do you know people who don't know how to read? Could you teach them how to read?
All right. So Salman, can we take another comment? I think there's a very interesting comment from Menas Khan, and if you can show it up on the screen. Okay. So she says, if it doesn't scare you, it's not worth it. And there's a very famous saying that a ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what it is built for. So what's your take on it?
I like to be scared, but I like it to be a good kind of scared. You know, there's a difference between bad scared, which, you know, you've got, you know, some dude following you with a knife. You know, that's not the kind of scared I want to be involved in. But the kind of scared of, you know, wow, I'm getting on a stage in Pakistan and there are 1,000 people in the audience, and, you know, there aren't that many non-Pakistanis here. Oh gosh, you know, this is scary. You know, that kind of scary, yes, like sign me up. The kind of scary where, wow, I just left Microsoft for a new job. I have to create this whole thing myself, and I have to learn about this new technology and this new business. You know, that's a great kind of scary to me. Jumping out of a plane, that's a good kind of scary for me. Climbing a volcano, a good kind of scary for me. What I'll tell you I'm scared of, I'm not scared of jumping out of a plane. I'm not scared of climbing a 10,000-foot volcano, which I have done. I'm scared of synchronized dancing. I don't like, you know, when you see these Bollywood dancing things where everybody's dancing together. Yeah, no, that is not the kind of scary that I want to be involved in.
That's fine. Okay. So we're waiting for the next question. Are we showing up the next question, Salman?
All right, should I come up with a question?
Yes, please. We don't have any more questions now. Please go ahead.
All right.
Okay.
So come up with another question.
Yeah. So I think, Melissa, it's always fun talking to you, and it's equally informative too. Like if you're doing it when you are in Pakistan, or either you are doing it online. So I extend my gratitude to you on behalf of Pakistan Child Development Society. And I would also like to thank and appreciate Salman Khwaja for great work backstage. I think if you have an ending note or a message to share with us, or a particular story that you want to share using this platform, then yeah, obviously we do have some time to share that. Otherwise, we can conclude it here and call it a day. And you can always, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that one of the biggest things that I think someone told me recently, it was actually former President Clinton. former President Clinton, I was in Puerto Rico, and this is a few months ago, and I was standing in line, and it was a small group of people, you know, so it was like me and maybe 10 or 15 other people, and we were all invited to meet the former president. And so I'm standing there, and I'm the first, they put me first in the line. I have no idea why. And I'm wearing an IBM t-shirt and some jeans and whatever. And so I'm waiting, I come, he walks out, you know, very charismatic, as you would expect a former president to do. And and then they motion for me to go up, and I go up, and I get, you know, I give him my hand, and he, you know, shakes my hand and puts his hand on my back, which was like not creepy. It was fine. And so he said, and I said, look at me coming here first in line with my IBM t-shirt. And he said, may you always be first. And so with that, I hope that all of you may always be first.
That's great. So there's another comment from Manasa, and she loved your response to her comment.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
Okay. So if you want to have any more questions, you can always reach to me, Melissa, directly, or you can post it on our page. You can see our LinkedIn handles on this sticker. We'll also share it in the comment section. And she's quite active on Twitter. She's active on LinkedIn, Facebook. So she remains in the crowd all the time. So thank you for joining us. See you next Friday in another session with another interesting guest. Thank you, Melissa, for this exciting and great session.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So shukriya.
Thank you. Shukriya. Allah Hafiz.
Good Hafiz.